The time is 6:34, so I will call the work session of the mayor and council for the city of Snellville, Georgia, Monday, March 23rd, 2026 to order. We do have a quorum. We are missing Carrie Hetherington tonight. She let me know that she had a little bit of an injury and won't be able to be here tonight. So we'll go through the regular meeting. Tonight we do have an exec session that we're going to have that I'd like to allow at least 15 minutes for. So I'll be watching the clock. If we can run through this and finish up by like 10 after 7, then we can do the exec session and hopefully get to our meeting on time. Regular business meeting. Anyone want to do the pledge?
I'll do it.
You'll do it? Okay. Anyone want to say the invocation? No? Oh, that's right. We get things on the right lines here. We have a proclamation for the month of the military child. Got the approval of minutes for our last meeting. Jimmy Whitaker, our city auditor, is here, so he's going to say a little bit here in the work session, and then he's also going to do a presentation at the council meeting. We'll do the approval of the agenda. We just have 3 items on the agenda. The first is this one, the sanitation, awarding the contract on the sanitation contract. Anybody have any questions for the work session on that? Okay. The staff's recommendation is waste management. And then, was there an amount on there? Or there's not an amount?
No, yeah, that's an important distinction to make with this contract. That please do not, it's not, unlike capital projects where there's a specific budgeted amount or a contract amount that we're approving with the contract. We try to give you an idea of what we think it would be for the first year, but that doesn't need to be in the motion. You're just approving the contract with waste management.
And 3.5 is just...
That's just FYI for you all to kind of have an idea of what we think the total contract value for that first year is. Then you're going to have consumer price index increases that are going to be coming that are built into the contract, that each year it will go up by a certain percentage based on the Bureau of Labor of Statistics data that is identified, the specific data, not math, that's what I'm looking for, kind of data set that they're putting out there as the consumer price index increase. And that will be built into the contract that you'll approve, each year.
And it's not a set dollar amount too, because you may have more houses that come on, plus people may get a second trash can, they may do recycling, they may not, and all of those are costs that you just won't know. And then item B is the opioid settlement agreement. So there were 6 other defendants. I talked to all the council members about the agenda items, I think, except for Councilmember Hardrick. So this is just approving participation in the class actions settlements with these other 6 defendants. And Matt, if you all would, a lot of these settlements have required those funds to be used for something related to the opioid crisis. I know we've, done Narcan and things for our police officers. Matt, if you can put together an amount of what we've collected on those settlements to date, what we spent out of those funds, and then what we've got remaining, and then so that we can figure that out. And there's a lot of latitude on, you know, what can be drug-related. And it might be partnering with a nonprofit who does drug awareness or assistance to people with addictions. It may be anything else that police officers, you know, if you need extra training for handling those situations or whatever, we can figure out what we want to do with those funds that would be compliant with what those settlements required. So that's just approval for those agreements. And then updating the legal services agreement with Powell and Crawley are merging with Kevin Talent, who's been filling in for us for a couple of meetings. So are you going under Talent and Howell?
Yes.
Yeah. So with that too, with that change, then they're asking for an updated fee agreement. There. So that covers the regular meeting. Anybody have any questions?
I didn't notice that updated fee. I know it said $250.
Hourly.
And $225 for, it was $250, $225, and $125. Is that including the new partnership as well? That's everything?
Yeah, it's listed by either if it's a partner or an attorney doing it, or if it's paralegal and it's hourly.
But that reflects the merger, is my potential.
Yes. Yeah, you'll notice that the fee agreement letter is from Talent Howell. So there's not a price, it's not a flat price. Like most professional service billers, it's by the hour. Okay. Anything else? All right. Any correspondence? City attorney's report?
We do executive session.
All right, Mr. Whitaker. A little audit review by our city auditor.
Well, Matt asked me,
No, you want to sit right here?
oh, okay,
You
good.
sit down. Or, you have to stand right here.
Matt asked me to be here tonight to explain a significant change in the way the 2025 audit is being presented versus the way it has been presented in prior years. Prior to 2025, the city financial statement had about 10 funds, all of which were considered to be part of the primary government. It also had 3 component units, which are separate legal entities, and you can report, and those component units are the Downtown Development Authority, the Development Authority, and the Urban Redevelopment Authority. And those component units can be reported on the financial statements in one of 2 ways. It can be presented as a discretely presented component unit, which its assets, its liabilities, and its operations are shown separately in the audit. Or it can be presented as a blended component unit, which means that it is so closely related to the primary government that it actually is blended. Their financial statements are blended into the primary government's. Prior to 2025, the Downtown Development Authority and the Development Authority were considered to be discretely presented component units, and the Urban Redevelopment Authority was considered to be a blended unit. During 2025, the Downtown Development Authority was determined to be a blended component unit. And the reason behind that is that the city pays all or a significant portion of the Downtown Development Authority's long-term debt. If that is the case, governmental accounting principles requires the component unit to be reported as a component unit. So, as a result of that determination, $29 million of that capital assets and $22 million of long-term debt were included in the primary government's financial statements instead of being shown separately. Overall, the net position of the primary government increased $10,907,000. So the net result of all this is that the Downtown Development Authority is not being shown separately in your financial statements anymore. In the audit, it's being shown as its assets, its liabilities, its operations are being shown, are combined with the primary government. So it's not shown separately anymore, even though it is still a legal separate entity. It still has to have its own financial statements prepared. It still has to report to federal and state agencies like it has in the past. If you get time and you want to compare your 2025 audit with your 2024 audit, you will see what the significance is of this change. And if you want to turn to page, I think you all got an audit on page 16 of the 2025 audit. You can see how the Snellville Development Authority is presented there. Last year, in 2024, the Downtown Development Authority was also presented there as a separate entity. But now the Downtown Development Authority has been included in the governmental activities, and the governmental activities column.
So we're really seeing that in like the depreciable capital assets.
That's a significant amount, and the long-term debt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's really the major difference in here.
That is the significant change.
Okay.
Yes.
To clarify, it was always there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was
Just
shown,
not in
it
the
was shown in a
government
different way.
It's so
The debt
close.
has been there since you took the bonds out. The city took the bonds out in 2019, or 2021, whatever that was.
So really, there's no difference anywhere other than in the final audit report that's required by your principals.
Exactly, and it's required to be, the DBA now is required to be presented as part of the primary government.
Got it.
If you want me to go over how the general fund did this year, I'll be glad to. And we can go to that on page, starting on page 18. This is the fund accounting, so it's mainly current assets, current liabilities. It doesn't have long-term debt on it, and it doesn't have capital assets on it. So you can see under the general fund category, total assets amounted to $8,081,000, and $6,219,000 of that was cash. Liabilities amounted to $3,133,000, and deferred inflows amounted to $1,244,000. So you take your assets, subtract out your liabilities and deferred inflows, and you come down to a fund balance of $3,703,000. That represents a 19.6% reserve compared to the 2025 expenditures of the general fund. Now, the expenditures of the general fund also included about $3,800,000 worth of property that was purchased during the year for future community development projects. So that's why it increased or had $18 million in expenses.
Jimmy, can I add something to that? So a good rule of thumb, or at least what a lot of cities do, is try to get within, to have their fund balance be 25% or more of their total expenses there. So we were at about 50% before we bought the property that we bought. So the idea would be when that time comes to offload that property, and the city would recoup that money back, that we would be in a much better financial position from a total fund balance perspective, you know, there. And other thing I'll note is you can see the fund balance isn't the same as actual cash there. So
Yeah, don't get confused
make
on
sure
that.
that's not actual cash.
Right.
There, it's kind of your accumulated net over the years of operation.
Exactly.
And the inflows and outflows and what that looks like. So our goal would be to build that back up to at least 25%. You know, Butch, the predecessor, liked to be at 50. I think that's probably a good, you know, between 25 and 50 is probably a good place to be, just on the volatility of the economy, you know, and you just don't know when, you know, you wind the clocks back. When the housing crisis, you know, a lot of people were hurting financially, cities were hurting financially. You just don't know when that stuff is going to happen. It's hard to predict that. So it's good to store for a rainy day, I guess is the lesson. Sorry, I just want to add that too.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them. Oh, well, you can see the income statement on page 20. Under the general fund, you can see that total revenues amounted to $16,153,000. Total expenditures amounted to $18,913,000. That left you with an excess of expenditures over revenues of $2,759,000. We also transferred $876,000 to other funds. Most of that went to sanitation. And so the net change in fund balance amounted to a negative $3,636,000 for the year. Again, a lot of that had to do with purchase of that property.
And that's the community development line, right?
Yes.
I have a question regarding your findings. Is this a place for that?
Sure.
So on page 125, it talks about your financial statement audits, the reimbursement owed to SPOS 4. Can you elaborate and explain that a little bit?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can. The reason that the general fund owed the SPLOST fund that amount of money is because we sometimes get reimbursements from the county for expenditures that are for projects that they share in. And so when we get the reimbursement, that reimbursement goes into the general fund. And that money was spent out of the SPLOST fund, and it was not reimbursed to the SPLOST fund until after year end.
Okay.
So it's not like we spent money that we shouldn't have. It was just a timing difference.
I know in 2023, we were fined because we spent money outside of the capital requirements for SPLOST. Where I've been looking to see how we repaired that and put those dollars back in our 2023 financial statement findings. And I haven't seen that, but that could be something, maybe you could point me in the right direction. In the same report for 2023, we were found in violation of spending SPLOST dollars outside of the requirement.
Okay, so what I think that, if you want to,
Yeah.
what I think that was though, is we paid the debt service of DDA, and during that time, I mean, on an annual basis, along with that debt service payment, we also pay bank charges that they charge us. And something like $2,500 was paid in SPLOST funds too, along with the debt service. And that $2,500 is a bank fee, so the debt service is really not budgeted as a SPLOST fund. So yeah, that needs to be repaid somewhere around $2,500 a year it was.
Well, all that's been handled. So when you get findings, these are already addressed and corrected as soon as we know. These aren't lingering things that we wait for the audit to correct and change. It's just
And-
after the year end.
And some of these things were done even before the audit. It's just that it happened after June 30th, the cutoff date.
To fix it.
Right. So then the question would be then, if we did pay it back, do we get to see that it's been completed? So you're saying that we owe the $2,000?
I don't
and I'm
think it
just
had been paid
asking-
back as of
Right.
June 30, 2025.
Okay, so my question then would be, how do we keep track that if we owed something in 2023, if it's still outstanding, what are we doing to mitigate that?
No, it wouldn't be still outstanding, it would have,
That's what you just said.
it was at June 30th, 2023, but as soon as it's found, then it's reimbursed. So it should have taken place, I mean, I'm sure you could go find a transfer of that to prove to you that that $2,500 was
Prove to the citizens, right?
if the citizens are asking a question, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then last, are the credit cards in here too? The city credit cards, they're not a part of, yes? you're
For the
saying-
audit, they're not a finding.
Okay.
You don't spend SPOS dollars on.
No, I know that part. I'm just saying, so
They're included in all the
Is it
expenses,
included in this report.
in the expenses, yes.
Could you show me where it would be at?
There's no line item for credit cards. It's just general expenses that a city incurs. So it's a method of payment, like a check or cash. So it's not separated out.
Gotcha.
And if there were any credit card balances due at June 30th, they would show up in either the accounts payable line or the, I don't know where you put them, accounts
And what
payable.
page is that, sir?
Well, accounts payable, if you look at,
It's on the balance sheet.
so there's a page 20, I guess. No, page 18.
Page 18.
And this is where we have the balance sheet, which includes assets and liabilities. And you see under liabilities, accounts payable.
Yes, sir.
So if you had any credit card balances due, which you did have credit card balances due, it'd be included in that $902,000.
Thank you for that. That's all the questions that I have at the moment. Thank you so very much.
Anyone else?
Do you mind doing one thing? Do you mind just going through the balance sheet and the income statement for our enterprise fund?
Oh, okay. Okay, so if you'll turn to page 26. We actually have some significant changes there too, so, but I mean, it's for the better. So, solid waste, you can see that the total assets amounted to $1,271,000. Its liabilities amounted to $709,000, so you had a net fund balance or net position at the end of the year of $561,000. And all of that was net investment in capital assets, so it's not like you had any excess current assets there. Stormwater, you had $11,311,000 in total assets, and of course, most of that is infrastructure. You only had $8,830 in liabilities, so you had $11,302,000 in that position, which unrestricted was amounted to $1,037,000. Solid waste on page 27, which is your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes of fund balance. You can see that the solid waste fund had $2,521,000 in operating revenues, $3,545,000 in operating expenses for a operating loss of $1,024,000. The transfers in amounted to $989,000 from the general fund. And so that ended up being a net loss of only $34,000. That's what has happened over the years since you have not been charging for residential sanitation services. And so I understand that's changing for the current year. Stormwater, your total operating revenues amounted to $1,930,000. Total operating expenses, $426,000. Your operating income amounted to $1,508,000. With $149 in interest. You had $1,508,000 in net income before capital contributions. You had capital contributions of $191,000, which includes capital outlay from the ARPA fund. So we transferred that capital item over, or improvements, it was infrastructure improvements, over to the stormwater fund. That amounted to $191,000. So your net income for the year in the stormwater fee totaled $1,699,000. A lot of that had to do with the stormwater fee increase that y'all had. And one thing to know here that your $426,000 in operating expenses does not include what you spend on infrastructure for the year. What you spent on infrastructure for the year amounted to $685,000. So that totaled about $1 million in capital outlay.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. I guess we'll hear from you again.
Okay.
Update your projects.
Yes, if you refer to your first update, we've gone through a few things here. We've heard that Parkside District is planning a soft opening this week. The butcher shop opened at Cricket Can last week, which is great. And there's additional vendors that are hopefully coming online the next few weeks. From what I've been told, the next closest opening is the Philly cheesesteak place there, across from the Thai suite. Unfortunately, we'll have to cancel our Pause and Play event at the Grove. We weren't able to get the sponsors that we were hoping to get, and additional participants. Jane Harrison reached out to several local veterinarians and other kind of folks to help come out and be a part of it, and it just wasn't happening. So we're going to shelf that one. We're going to shift our focus to the grand opening of the Grove, which is May 2nd. You'll be getting an email invitation from staff there, May 2nd from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There. We'll be sharing more details with all of you as it unfolds there. But there'll be live music and opportunity for folks to get trial of the food that's there. It should be a good event. We'll ask Barbara to say something. We told her that specifically, but we'll ask her to say some things, about the project. And on this front, so Rochelle, you have brought up some issues, concerns about the use of kind of delivery trucks on Sawyer's, the street of the Grove that terminates kind of a loop by the library. So it's not the long one that you can go from Oak to Wisteria on, that Cricket Can is on. We shared those concerns with our partners. There's been some suggestions made that we need to go over and need to get a little more clarity on them. And in the master declaration, which is kind of the governing document for the development when it was being discussed and a partner was being brought in to build, it kind of delineates the responsibilities of the parties in the construction and the maintenance of the project. Was it in 2019?
Yeah, 2018, 19.
That there are kind of designated parking spots along the Grove. There's a handful, and I'll share this with all of you, so you don't have to try to remember, but there are certain spots that are dedicated, that are unrestricted. There are certain spots that are meant for this restaurant, certain spots that are meant for that restaurant, some of the retail there. And so we'll review that together. The property owner of the Taqueria and the Parkside have already had conversations with those restaurants that there shouldn't be any delivery trucks going down Sawyer, which is the shorter street with the turnaround, for several reasons. First one is that there's fear they can't turn around properly there without going over the median, the landscape median that's kind of at the end of that property. There's obviously concerns for the passerbys and folks coming and going and making that turn. So they have instructed drivers, and I think it's going to take a few weeks as Parkside opens to kind of figure out their delivery schedule. to come in on Snell, which is the longer of the two roads, that you can go from Wisteria to Oak on that road. There's also, we had a conversation, so that's in the works, so we'll bring that to you guys as we kind of, but the long story short is that our partners see the need and see the concern and want to work with us on trying to find a better solution for everyone down there. The other issue that we've been working on is finding a way to address extended parking at the Grove, right? Where you have folks that are leaving cars in public parking spots for weeks up to months at a time. We talked with Kevin and Jay. They've given us a sample ordinance that sample ordinance, a little bit of a misnomer. They shared an ordinance that that Kevin had created for county. So there are some good things in here. There are certainly some things that we think we would adapt a little bit differently to meet our needs. But the premise is essentially we could adopt an ordinance that would set parking restrictions for very specific sections of the Grove, for very specific times, and for very specific reasons there. And we can add public parking spots or take them away by resolution. So you kind of adopt a base ordinance that governs public parking in an area and can shape it by resolution as need be. Like I said, we had a call about it today, or at least we talked about it again today amongst staff. I think there are some things that we would recommend for you guys to take a look at with us, but that's in the works as well, to work through that. Might be some combination of some signage and some other things, code enforcement, law enforcement, we need to kind of look at. I think certainly a broad concern would be capacity. Do we have enough folks to address at the level we want to address concerns at? But there again, we'll come back with a recommendation and a sample for you all to consider once we've had more time to take a look at it and give our turn.
And if I may add, could you just please make sure with that crosswalk and safety, crossing the street from the leasing office to the parking garage, that little crosswalk, some type of painting across that. I was there today, and just again, the cars coming around, not seeing pedestrians. So we can just make sure that space where the vehicles turn in and come around, handicap stop, it's just no visibility. And I just don't want anybody to do it. Thank you.
Nothing's changed under the beautification sanitation program. I mean, the recycling program is still open until the end of next month. Mayor and council put on development zoning guidelines, so we wind the clocks back again to December. We had a presentation by the mayor on redevelopment in the town core and what that vision has been. We followed up that conversation with some urban redevelopment principles and the site visits to some local cities. All of that is in preparation, in part, to discuss redevelopment opportunities at the city-owned 5 or 6 acres that we own across from the Grove. Part of that initial process is for us to work with an engineering firm to develop a concept, and it would probably be 2 or 3 concepts of what we could actually do and fit on that, on those 5 acres, 5 or 6 acres, how we could configure whatever we're looking for there. So we have reached out to a firm that we've used before. It's got a good reputation for things like this, and asked for a proposal to work with us to be able to create these concepts, to do some cost analyses behind some market analysis on what's viable down there, what we need to support the Grove. We'll bring that to you all when we get that proposal back. They actually sent us a scope today, kind of confirming are they kind of in line with what we're asking for them to do. When we take a look at that this week, we'll confirm with them that's what we want to do, and then they'll write up a financial proposal based on that scope. And we'll bring that to you when the time comes. Package sales presentation, Jane, you think?
I got a quick question. I apologize real quick. For that portion of it, do they normally give you all the idea what, like, how do they start? From what creative position do they start from? How do they know, even from the offset, what we're asking for? I mean, do they start from?
Give them like the basis.
Give them an idea, basically.
Like, what does it look like with residential? What does it look like with residential and commercial? What is it? And then market conditions too, basically. What will actually
Be viable
be
there.
viable, yeah. So it starts off like with 2 or 3 concepts where they're gonna be able to give you best case scenario with different uses, and then they'll whittle that down based on cost basis analysis, how it pencils or how it plays out in the development world, and that pretty much leads you to what's feasible financially. And then the whole planning process, it kind of leads you from there. Like, you could do this and it would work. You could do this and it would work. Just kind of the basis to know if some stuff will even survive there. You know, so they pretty much, the zoning plays a big thing in it too. So it's just a very loose kind of guidelines at first as far as residential versus commercial, or residential and commercial, and then kind of, you know, hourglasses down and you put more and more restrictions on it. How wide is it? How much stormwater do you need? How much parking do you need? A lot of that stuff dictates what happens from the very beginning, infrastructure. You gotta go to get your stormwater. A lot of that stuff you wanna see on the front end to see what the true yield of the property may be, whether it's 300 units or whatever amount of units for, residential, whether it's a certain amount of square footage for commercial, whether it's a mix. All of that basis on the front end kind of leads you there. And the developers, they do all this stuff before they come see us, and it's a private property. And they tell us, you know, hey, we think this is what our numbers say. Now, have our own numbers, the ones that we control, where the data comes from, and then we'll have a real backbone. You get to see basically what can and can't go there, and then the rest is just kind of driving the idea for specific green spaces, all when you get down into the details. This is basically like, what can you do with this shape, with these utilities, and this market? And then even, you know, we're gonna provide some projections down the road, because we're not building right now. It's honestly not a great time, so they'll put that in there. It's basically gonna give you everything you need, even 2 small details to understand what's going on there, what the potential could be, what are the roadblocks, what works well with the property. So it's something I think is really important on, especially when the public, it's public money, it's public asset, that would really go that deep and flesh it out. Just don't trust, you know, somebody's word.
Will the citizens be included?
Yeah, the whole, it's.
Not in that
Once the
initial
concept.
process.
Yeah,
Once
but-
we have a couple concepts,
Yeah, part
then
of the
we
process,
bring it.
part of it is always public input.
I think that's all good, right? But in concept, they really need to review what our comprehensive plan looks like.
Yeah, they wrote it.
And also what that looks like, what are the needs of the citizens of the community? Well, they're architects, and I get it. I feel they stay in their lane. However, I think it is important to say, I'm in Snellville. What do we want Snellville to look like, feel like, and serve the needs and the best use of the space? So if they do that in their concepts, then I think it'll be a little bit well received by the community
Yeah,
if
of
we
course.
take their needs.
Yeah.
Agreed, 100%.
We're hitting on, we're almost at 7:15, so if we're gonna do the exec session before the meeting, we need to
Yeah.
speed through the rest. Pardon?
Did we talk about the package sales? Do we have an update on that at all? So it's just, we're waiting on a court date.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Briscoe Park, so they're continuing with the steel erection and the piers. North and Wisteria, they poured the last major section of sidewalk right there on the corner of North and Wisteria there in front of the Wisteria One Building. And then the .gov crossover migration is scheduled to start at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. So your email accounts will be unavailable overnight while we're doing that migration. So cross your fingers that everything goes well. If you
Plan for some hiccups, though.
yes, exactly. All right, that's it.
And then we have Councilmember Brown on the space.
So I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, as we walk in, there are two windows, two display windows inside the council chambers. One is empty, and I would like to reserve some space to let you all know that Snellville Youth Council would like to display their resolution that they got from the governor and artifacts that they had from the Unity Day quilt celebrations, like the Unity Day quilt to have at home. Just wanted to run that by council to make sure that you all were in agreement with displaying your achievements in that window. It'll be clean, of course, we'll clean it and display them appropriately. Nothing offensive, it will be, pictures and artifacts, things that represent Snellville Youth Council.
Everybody good with that?
Yes. Right.
I am fine with that, thank you for asking.
I just want to make sure that everyone is not afraid. I go and see, like, there's stuff up there, like, library.
You want to see anything about the kids?
Okay, we're at 7:15. We'll see if we can get this done. During the work session of the Mayor and City Council of Snellville, Georgia, Mayor Vander announced that certain matters should be discussed in a closed session of the meeting and asked council to advise the city with respect to closing the meeting. City Attorney Jake Crowley advised the city for the following reasons to close the meeting. Upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, which is excluded pursuant to OCGA Section 50-14-3B2. On the motion of Councilmember Carter,
Can I ask a question? What are we going into executive session for?
personnel.
Personnel matters?
Mhm.
Are we going to be specific, according to say, is it hiring, firing, discipline?
Not in this section, no.
So the Open Meetings Act doesn't state that we have to say specifically what we're going to do?
You have to be going for three main reasons: litigation, real estate, or personnel.
Right. Don't you have to state to the public exactly under those three categories what it
You do not have to
specifically
get
is?
more specific than that.
This is the reading.
Okay, so. Just asking, so thank you for giving me the time to put it up to make sure.
Well, I think for us to do this, we won't have time to handle the discussion that needs to be had. So what we'll do then is we'll adjourn our work session. We'll go into the regular meeting. When that meeting is ended, we won't do an adjournment. We will announce that we're going into exec session, and then we'll come here for the exec session. And then once we're done with the exec session, we adjourn that, and then we'll adjourn the regular meeting.
Because that's what it says that I was reading here, so thank you for doing that. 'Cause that's what it says in the Georgia Open Meetings Act.
What?
That we're supposed to, in the open meeting, you vote in front of the people. You state what the reason is. You adjourn the meeting, you close it, come here.
We
say
don't
you have-
adjourn that meeting.
Understand correction.
Yes.
Understand corrected.
Yes.
And then you come here, you do the closed meeting, you close it, then you go back out into the public.
Right.
Correct. But we typically don't do that, we do it in here.
We typically-
This is an open meeting.
This is an open meeting, and we try to do the exec sessions before our meetings so that we don't have to come back here after the meeting's over. And most of the time, we can get that done. We've been able to get that done for quite a while, but
Yeah.
not always.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn the work session?
Motion to adjourn the work session.
Is there a second? Motion and a second, all in favor? That is 5 in favor. So we are done with the work session, and we're going to do the exec session.